As I look back in my life in Union City, when we came from Cuba in 1966, my mother got left behind. Eventually, she came a year later, almost a year later. And, we worked really, really hard. My parents worked. My mother worked in the tomato fields. My father worked as a janitor at J. Byron's, which is the equivalent of like a J.C. Penney's. And we just couldn't make ends meet. We really had no possession. We didn't have a car. We bought a television set like 2.5 years after being in the United States. My brother and I worked since we were 10 years old to help feed the family, but we're really struggling. My mother one day decided that we would move to New Jersey because apparently in Union City there was just greater opportunities. We went to live with a family of ours, of hers, a cousin, just amazing, wonderful people. Just two families. There were three. They only had one daughter, and it was us, my mom, my dad, and three of us, all eight of us in a one-bedroom apartment. And it was rough. It was in Union City, New Jersey. It was mostly a Cuban neighborhood. But I look back shortly after we moved in with them. My parents saved up enough money. They both got factory jobs, and then we rented our own apartment. And it was rough place. It was in Jersey City, and I mean the corner they called it Vietnam because there was 4 bars, and there was shootout in our building. There was a shooting gallery. What that is basically where people go to shoot heroin, and if they die, well, then they can cut the heroin some more. Another apartment they sold machine guns, and then another apartment was a prostitution ring. And we lived in the bottom apartment. I remember the FBI raiding the building constantly, and I was the interpreter. Ain't it funny? I used to say that one day I want to be an FBI agent. But I look at those days and we had nothing, literally nothing. We walked to school in the cold, didn't matter how freezing it was outside. I was 12, 13 years old, my brother 12 or 11, and my sister 7 or 8 years old. And we just walked, and then we came home and we went to work. My brother and I found each other. We found jobs. I remember that we would save enough money to be able to go to Yankee Stadium like once a month. And it was funny because I look back today and in the horror of thinking about letting your kids get on the subway all the way up to the Bronx and to go see a baseball game. But we did, my brother and I. And people used to take care of us, the elders on the subway, and it was safe. And and I look back, we had nothing, literally nothing. But you know what we did have? We had unity. We had love. And to me, it was probably one of the greatest times in our life. I look back in my life when I had so much wealth, so much power, and I was so miserable. I wanted to die. But there in Union City, New Jersey, I remember having one little girlfriend. I don't even know if she thought it was my girlfriend or not. But we used to go ice skating, and that was a big deal if we went ice skating once a month. I ended up playing baseball, and I was really, really good. I was the starting catcher. I made the varsity team as a freshman. I was the starting catcher of the JV team. And life was just great. We took the bus to school. We made to do with very little. Every other weekend, my parents, in this really dump of a place that we lived, it had a little cement backyard. And in that backyard, my parents would get together and other neighbors, and they would play music and just have a good time. Again, with nothing. A lot better than when I used to spend $500,000 on a party. But, so I look back at those days in Union City. I had a great friends from high school. And it was really, really joyful. And I look at them with nostalgia. And I talked with my brother a lot about it. And my brother once sent me that song from Neil Sedaka, The Hungry Years. He said, we had nothing. We dreamed a lot. And we dreamed of making. I remember we had little transistor radios, and we would lay in that apartment was like a trailer. You walk in, and to the immediate right was the end of one end of the apartment, and it was where the kitchen and a little diner table was there. And then you go left, and it was a hallway, and to the right, my parents put bunk beds in the hallway. And then there was one bedroom for my grandmother, and the other bedroom was for my parents at the end, one bathroom for all of us. And it was horrible when we moved in. I mean, there was just hard. I mean, we had to spend tons of money in Clorox and paint the walls. And but we were so joyful when we got that apartment clean and when we lived in it. And my brother and I would go to bed at night in those bunk beds, and we had the little transistor radio, and we used to listen to the sports. We used to listen to the Knicks, or the Yankees when they played, and it was amazing time. It was really one of the greatest times in my life, and and it looks to show you that money is not going to buy you. Money will buy you possessions, but it will not buy you happiness and joy. Money will not bring people close to you. And if they do, the ones they bring are people that just want something from you. Yeah, money provides certain comforts in life, and it's not bad to have money. I worked very, very hard, and I enjoy the life that I have. And it's wonderful to do that. But when we place all of our joy and all of our happiness and all of our existence in that search for that power, for that money, at the end of the day, if you're ever even lucky enough to reach it, you'll realize it's just not there. Focus on the little things. Another thing that I reminisce about at night, since we didn't have television, we play Monopoly. And man, my brother and I love to cheat each other. It was amazing. But we played Monopoly literally every night. And you know what? It was just a great, joyful time to sit there, drink water, because we didn't have sodas. We couldn't afford to buy Coca-Cola or anything like that. So, as I think a lot about it, I realized that, where my true joy in life began. It was, man, those times with my mom and my dad and my brother and sister. We were so close with each other. And, when we worked and we were able to buy like a little Coleman stove. And I remember like 2-3 years later, my dad bought his first car, probably 5 years after being in America. And when he bought his first car, I remember that my mom on the weekend, she would cook on Friday night. And she would freeze the food, put it in the refrigerator, and she would cook rice, beans, and picadillo, which is like a hamburger meat, mashed up, a favorite Cuban dish. And they would put it in the car, and then we would make trips. We would go up to like Niagara Falls, and we would stop and have lunch at rest stops. And that night we would sleep in the car at a rest stop. In the morning we would brush our teeth in the bathroom, and we would go on. And we saw a lot of America. We went to Michigan. We went, like I said, to Washington, D.C. We went to a lot of places like that. Literally with just gas money. That's all we had, gas money. We didn't have nothing else. We couldn't go into major attractions or anything like that. But we saw a lot, and we had a great time. And we used to look forward to those trips, those road trips. And until eventually I ended up, my dad let me borrow $100 to put a down payment on my first car. Man, and it was horrible. That thing used to rust out, and it didn't have air conditioning. It had it was a a 2-door, and it had a black interior vinyl, no radio, Chevrolet Vega. It would rust out, and it was manual. I remember when we went to pick it up. I never drove a manual car in my life. And it was in Michigan from another Cuban friend of ours, and who had a car dealership in Michigan and was able to finance it for me. And I would make my payments on it with my part-time jobs that I had. But I had to learn how to drive the car manual from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Jersey City, New Jersey. And I did. And man, I love that car. I love that car a lot more than Rolls Royces, Bugattis, any other car, many cars that I have had. And I enjoy cars, don't get me wrong. But man, that car just brought so much joy because I bought it with so much sacrifice. Yeah, my life in Union City was tough in many ways, but it was full of joy. It was full of, we were filled. We were happy. I can't say that years later when I ended up becoming very powerful, making so much money, I was ever happy. I pretended that I was. I had a good time, but happy, joyful? No, because see, then nothing had meaning in my life. Women had no meaning. I could go to bed with whichever one I wanted. Cars didn't have no meaning. I could buy $1 million worth of cars and it didn't matter. Mansions had no meaning. Nothing had any meaning. And above all, I was very separated from my brother, who was very, very close to me. And, and my parents, I ended up devastating them when they found out that I had become a drug lord and that they had sacrificed so much to help me get an education and become somebody. So I tell this story because someone asked me to tell the story about how it was in Union City. And, it also, it brings great memories to me. And people would think that, wow, how can that struggle, how can that pain, how can that horrible times bring great joy? It did, man. It brought great memories and great times. And every once in a while I hear from one of my friends in high school. And I think about, all the fun that we had in high school. Playing ping pong, playing baseball, doing all kinds of things. And really learning and knowing that every day I was going to become better. And I was on a mission to one day become very, very wealthy. But you know what? I just lost focus of the real reason and what was really, really important in my life. So there's a little walk through Union City. It was ugly. It was cold. The streets, the homes were old apartment buildings, but it was full of joy. It was full of happiness. And it was just a great place to grow up. I don't know. People can't ever make sense of it. But to me, it does bring great memories and great joy. And I yearn for those hungry years. Be blessed.